I want to discuss some tips and tricks I've used in nursing school to help me really launch my career and give me the best opportunities available in terms of education related to that field. So let's begin. Why should you listen to me and what value do I bring? So a little bit of background on my education. I went to nursing school here in Toronto, Ontario, and I attended a collaborative program between a university and a college. So how that works is I would attend 2 years in college first and then transfer over and finish my last 2 years in a university. In my first 2 years of college, I was able to obtain a 4.0 GPA, and in my last 2 years in university, I was able to obtain a 3.9 GPA in case you're curious about my academic standing. I was also able to maximize all 7 of my clinical rotations so that I would have a different exposure and settings throughout those 7 semesters so that I'm able to set myself up for the future and gain the most exposure as possible. So the first thing I want to mention is do your readings ahead of time. I cannot stress how important this is. I've seen so many people fail out of nursing school because they refuse to do their readings. They do it after the class, after the lecture, and then they're behind on so much. Avoid that avalanche of having to catch up on your notes and your readings and your lectures. You do not want to be in that position. In general, 1 week of reading is around 200 pages in nursing school, so you really want to maximize your time and make sure you do as much as you can before the class starts, so that when you're in class, it's just a skimming over and review of what you've already learned back at home, therefore reinforcing the knowledge and helping you achieve a greater sense of understanding when it comes to the material that you're learning for that week. Secondly, try to start as early as possible. What I mean by that is we'll have 4 months between each summer break, assuming that you are doing 2 semesters, break, 2 semesters, So during that 4-month summer break, towards the end, let's say about 2-3 weeks before the next school year starts, try to get your hand on the course outline for the following semester. This will help you greatly so that you're able to know what textbooks you need, what the workload is like, and if you can start earlier. I've used this method so many times. I started about a week or 2 before. I was able to finish all my readings up until the first test so that I've had about a month or 5 weeks to prepare for the first test, and during that time I'm already working on the material needed for the second test and then up until the exam as well. So I'm really staggering my time and learning how to allocate my studying properly. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is take advantage of your clinical placements. Now for nursing school, we go into these clinical placements and this is where we will get our hands-on experience. Please, 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 if you can, try not to go for the same hospital or the same units, because that is very limiting to your exposure on the clinical setting. So what I did for this was that in our program, we're able to prioritize what placements we want. Make sure you have a good backup for this, but make an excuse as to why you can only go to that location. For example, your transportation only allows for this time to that time, and this is the only location that will facilitate you arriving there early. All other locations will make you late guaranteed. Use that, use whatever excuse, try to maximize your clinical experience because that will set you up for the future, for job interviews, to say that you've done X, Y, and Z, and will make you seem a lot more prepared compared to your other peers who have freshly graduated from nursing school. All right, so the next one I want to go over is finding a study environment that works best for you. So after classes, I would just go home and study, but I always felt that I was so distracted at home, and I couldn't really get the material in my head. It was so difficult for me to get it down, fully understand and grasp the concept at hand. So I'd actually go to a library or a cafe after school, just somewhere away from the distractions at home, so that I'm able to be surrounded in an environment that facilitates that learning. All right. The next one is going to be, oh yeah, so this one is kind of snarky and kind of despicable, but it's worked for me and it's made my life a lot easier. So in nursing school, you'll be in a position where you'll find a lot of group projects, and it can be quite stressful relying on other people when it comes to having their end of the work completed. So what I did for group projects is assume responsibility of a lot of little things. So most of the time we'd be having a group presentation on a specific disease or a treatment. I would do my best to assume responsibility for small things, but a lot of the small things. So it's not really large, but to the group it seems like I'm doing a lot. So for example, when it came to diabetes, I would be responsible for risk factors, symptoms, and manifestations, basically the same thing. And it seems like 3 different categories, but basically it's only 1 or 2, and they're very easy to knock down and memorize. So trying to use that to your advantage. Okay, so next one is find test banks for practice. Now, in my experience, test banks have been lifesavers because sometimes test banks are actually the tests themselves, and now profs are too lazy to come up with their own questions and answers and all that stuff, so they just use test banks. However, if that's not the case, that's completely okay. Use test banks as a resource to test your knowledge and to see how far you've come with your studying. The only way you'll be able to know if you've really learned and understand the material is if you've been tested. And you don't want to do that. Let's say the first time you're tested is on an actual test where that determines your grade, if you'll pass or fail, if you move on to the next step into your nursing education. Don't take that risk. Look for tests online to see if you've been able to master the subject or identify your weaknesses in that concept. I think that's a really good way to gauge if your studying has been effective and if you need to work on a couple more things. All right, and here, oh yes, another one is to surround yourself with strong students. Now, don't spend your time with classmates who are lazy, who will discourage you from doing the assignment or who will drag you down in terms of your educational goals. You want to surround yourself with peers who are actually kind of overachievers, because if you're in that environment, you'll be motivated and encouraged to become more like them, to strive for more and to aim high. Master your weaknesses in nursing school. Let's say there's a topic that you just hate learning about. For me, that was pharmacology, acid and bases, health assessment. All of these difficult subjects I had a lot of trouble in, especially pharmacology. Holy shit, I hated pharmacology. That was so hard. So spend more time working on that. You know, if you're confident in certain areas, spend less time because you already have that foundational knowledge to know that you'll be doing good enough. Instead, spend that other time working on areas that you know you'll be tested on and you're not confident in. So now that you'll be able to achieve a higher academic standing if you're ever tested on that type of area or content. So sharpen your knives evenly. And one last thing I'd like to mention is that after a test or an exam, go back to your notes, highlight what was on that test and what was on that exam. Put those highlighted parts in a document, and now you have final exam prep. So do that for every test, and then at the end of the semester, when you're studying for the final exam, print out the final documents, and there you'll have every question and every topic that was covered in the previous test, so that you only need to go over that one document a couple of times and you know what's on the exam. Anyways guys, I hope that was helpful for upcoming students that are planning to go into nursing school, or students who are in nursing school and are returning in the next couple of weeks. You know, if you have any questions, feel free to leave it down below. If you'd like to share more about my nursing career and what I've done to pass the NCLEX on my first try, achieve a job in public health, leave it down below. I'd be happy to help you as much as I can. It's a very tough career and a very excruciating 4-year long educational ride. So I hope you all the best. Stay strong, stay healthy. I'll be catching you in the next video. Later.